Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar. My name is Andrew Tallents. I am the founder and managing partner of the Talents Partnership. We're proud to be once again partnering with Dan Wells, the founder of Grow CEO and Grow CFO, in the presentation of this series of 14 webinars about self-coaching. This is the 13th in our webinar series, and today's topic is creating a coaching culture. I will let you know about our final webinar at the end of today's session. As ever, before we get into the content of the webinar today, let's just take a few moments to settle into our own space and open our minds to learning something new about ourselves. Think about any distractions that might come up for you in the next hour or so, and try and find a way just to minimize those distractions. Let's just take a moment to settle into the room wherever you are. Relax those shoulders and let's just have some focus on the topic today of creating that coaching culture. We've got an hour together. I'm going to share some content with you and get you to do some thinking about how you can become more effective at helping to create a coaching culture within the organizations that you choose to serve. This will take around 35 minutes or so, and then we'll have up to 25 minutes for Q&A. I tend to find this subject raises lots of questions. You don't need to write down what's on the slide today because we'll post those online, but I do need you to have a pen and paper to hand as I'm going to ask you some questions later on. I won't be looking at the Q&A box today, so as we go through the webinar, if any questions come up for you, just type them into the chat box and we can defer them to the end of the presentation, and it just means I'll get to them at the right time. Some of you may also have technical problems. I know we're getting better at doing Zooms, but if this happens to you today, the best thing is just to exit the webinar, rejoin, and you should be able to get straight back in. Wi-Fi's been a bit slow for me here. I am on 4G today, so if we get some lag, then don't worry. We'll also be recording today's session and posting it onto the Grow portals on LinkedIn and on my YouTube channel. So you can also review the webinar at your convenience after today if you do miss any of it. So over the 14 webinars, we are exploring some different aspects of self-coaching. In previous webinars, we have explored the importance of self-leadership, the question, who am I? And we have also explored the question, why am I here? We have talked about the concept of essentialism, the disciplined pursuit of less, and how we can all build our resilience over time. We have explored the importance of building our emotional intelligence and how building trust in our key relationships can help us become more successful over time. We have explored how important key stakeholder management is to a leader's success. And we've also learned how to hold ourselves and others to account more effectively on a daily basis. We've learned about becoming more aware of our own self-limiting beliefs and how to manage them more effectively. And we have also explored the importance of creating space and time in becoming more effective as a leader. 2 weeks ago, the last time we were together, we learned about how we can become more effective in developing a coaching leadership style with our teams. And if you didn't manage to see any of those particular webinars on those subjects, again, you can watch them on my YouTube channel. Just type in Andrew Tallents into YouTube and you'll be able to see the series there and just watch the ones you've missed. I'm very fortunate to be able to coach ambitious leaders to help them fulfill their potential and be successful in life. And in our coaching sessions, we explore many of the issues on this slide to enable a leader to learn how to start self-coaching over time, so that they themselves can sustain their success in the long term. So briefly, let's explore what self-coaching is. According to the International Coach Federation, coaching is defined as a partnership with clients in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. It's a very simple statement. Although the concept of coaching stretches back all the way to when Socrates was around, in modern times, coaching has played a critical role in sports such as tennis, cycling, and football. But it was these two gentlemen, Tim Galloway and Sir John Whitmore, who took the whole movement of coaching from the sporting arena into the business world in the early 1970s. Tim Galloway was coaching tennis students at the time, and he began to notice that what was going on in the mind of his students was actually hindering their learning. He started to experiment with ways of helping players learn by developing their own personal awareness of the way they moved around the court and the way they hit the ball, not actually by specifically instructing them. He gave it the term the inner game and published his initial findings in the inner game of tennis in 1974. He's also written one called the inner game of golf, which is useful for you golfers. Later that decade, Sir John Whitmore realized that these principles could be applied to business. He continued his research, and in 1992, he published the book Coaching for Performance that you can see here. The principles of his book are still used extensively in businesses today. My day-to-day coaching style is based upon Galloway and Whitmore's approach. And it's focused on enabling the leader to become more self-aware in the moment of how they can become more effective in their personal life, their current role, and their career management plans. During my coaching sessions with my clients, we identify ways that the leader can take their learning into everyday situations. Specifically, they learn how to coach themselves in key moments in relation to decision making and relationship building. I am ultimately enabling the leader to self-coach so that over time they don't need to spend as much time with me. We define self-coaching as the process of leading one's own personal development through self-leadership and the support of others to help maximize their personal and professional potential. They have to own it. Through self-coaching, once you have decided that you are going to lead yourself first and foremost, and you have worked out who you are and accepting of who you are, and you have worked out your true purpose in life and why you are ultimately here on this planet, and then you commit to an essentialist life, enabling you to really focus on those tasks and key relationships that enable you to fulfill your purpose. You are then in a position to learn how to build your resilience over time. And as you do this, you can become much more effective at managing your own emotions, and you can choose to react in the most appropriate way as events happen around you. As you continue on your self-coaching journey as a leader, you learn how to build trust with key stakeholders and hold yourself and others to account to influence your future success. You learn the importance of managing your own self-limiting beliefs to ensure that you make the most of opportunities that present themselves to you, and you build your courage in your day-to-day decision-making. You also learn on this journey the importance of creating space in your day to think and be rather than just do. Over time, you learn how to develop teams more effectively by developing your coaching leadership style. And towards the end of my engagements with clients, and they understand the concept of self-coaching, we discuss another concept of extending the coaching philosophy across the whole organization that they work in, and how they can work towards creating a coaching culture throughout the whole of their company, business, or organization. And this is the topic for today's webinar. Ultimately, the reason I do what I do is to enable a variety of leaders around the world to experience the benefits of coaching so that they themselves become inspired to enable all of their employees in their organization to learn more about coaching and apply their learning in leading themselves and their teams more effectively. We all can feel a coaching culture when we enter into it and are present within it. In organizations that have created a truly coaching culture, you can ask anyone in the organization what the purpose and vision of their employer is, and you'll get broadly consistent answers. Not only that, but they will also understand their own role in fulfilling that purpose and vision, and how their own purpose and ambition for themselves is actually linked to the wider organization goals and purpose. When you look at how decisions are made in an organization that has created a successful coaching culture, you will tend to find that decisions are made in the moment by staff at all levels with a clear understanding about who is accountable for that decision being made. There is also a high level of trust, not only between leaders and their teams, but also between colleagues. They all trust each other implicitly. This reduces bureaucracy and time delays in decision making, enabling more agile responses to customer service issues and other issues across the organization. If you spent a day with a leader in an organization that has created a coaching culture, you would be amazed at how much listening they are doing and how much guiding they are doing throughout the day, with very little directing in terms of the way things get done. They set clear expectations of deliverables and coach their teams to develop their own solutions that are aligned with organization, purpose, vision, and values. In coaching cultures that I've experienced, employees are constantly learning about how to maximize their own contribution, as they are encouraged to think about their own personal challenges and how they are going to overcome them and solve them, taking full responsibility for the consequences of their actions and decision making. This inevitably leads to employees learning how to self-coach themselves over time and fulfill their own potential as human beings. This can be encouraged by creating a deliberately developmental organization, a DDO, that enables employees to seek opportunities themselves to stretch, get out of their comfort zone, sometimes outside of their functional expertise, doing this through project work. But what are the benefits of creating a coaching culture? Firstly, a coaching culture focuses on the enabling of an individual to identify their key development areas and key strengths. And through skilled coaching, leaders can create opportunities for staff to identify personal development opportunities that they weren't aware of, rather than actually being told where they need to develop by the leader. It has been proven through many research studies that a coaching culture enables more effective change management at all levels of an organization. Coaching employees enables them to better understand their role in driving the change that is required, that is also aligned with organizational and individual purpose. Over time, the whole organization becomes an organic and agile learning system, as individuals drive their own personal development in line with company goals and purpose. Leadership becomes less directive and more guiding and supportive in helping to remove everyday obstacles that hinder employees in achieving their personal goals. In many organizations that have created coaching cultures, deep democracy is developed, and this encourages a wider variety of voices from across the organization to speak out. This encourages the silent majority, of which there are many in organizations, to air their views and opinions, and the system, the organization, learns more effectively from all of those voices, rather than just listening to the vocal few that is usually the case in many organizations. Over time, leadership, team, and individual performance improves in an organization that has created a coaching culture. Although it is difficult to measure return on investment for coaching programs, the best KPIs to use are derived from employee engagement surveys, 360-degree feedback, and more importantly, Net Promoter Score. However, quite rightly, many leaders still remain skeptical about the value of investing large sums of money in creating a coaching culture due to the difficulty in actually measuring the return on investment. In a report issued in 2016 called the Riddler Report, E.ON UK, the German-owned utility company, was surveyed at length about how it measured its return on investment in relation to its spend in external and internal coaching resource for all of its employees at the various levels. They reported back that between January 2012 and June 2015, coaching generated an average return on investment of 2,685%. This means that for every £1,000 they spent on coaching, E.ON UK received a return of £26,685. This was measured in a number of ways, including reduction in the number of customer complaints, cost savings that were derived through the outcomes of coaching programs, and other key performance indicators. In the same report, respondents to an extensive survey asking about how coaching had helped to improve business performance specifically, 92% of the leaders that were surveyed had experienced an improvement in the coachee's business performance as a result of the coaching they had received. And they could measure this because of what they were looking to coach on. Another widely used KPI is the use of 360-degree feedback that is related to business performance indicators. This could be feedback from your colleagues on how much more effective the employee has been with their communication skills, for example. It'd be the before and after in terms of receiving the coaching, or how they deal with conflict situations with customers and colleagues, being more direct in their communication style, rather than using management time to resolve personal staff disputes. And finally, the impact of developing a coaching culture can be maximized by nurturing internal coaching capability to support leaders in the organization as they change their behaviors to embrace a coaching leadership style. This can lead to significant cost savings when replacing existing external coaching resources. I'm sure that some of you are wondering about how we can, as individuals, develop a coaching culture within the organizations that we serve. And these needn't be the companies we work with, they could be community organizations. What does it all mean in practice? As ever, of course, it starts with the leader. They need to be able to demonstrate that as a leader, they are aware of their own strengths and weaknesses, and that as a leader, they are willing to change their own leadership habits with the support of others around them. This sounds easy to achieve, doesn't it? As when the leader commits to this, they are the ones that are telling you they're making a commitment to changing their leadership style. But it's one thing to say it and it's one thing to do it. It's not easy without support, and asking for support is sometimes difficult. Firstly, the leaders need to role model a coaching leadership style and master self-leadership themselves. Then the leaders need to develop a team coaching leadership style and move the team to become high performing. Once the wider team members experience the value of coaching firsthand, it is then important to provide coaching training to the middle and senior leaders and managers within the organization so that they can understand and develop the skills needed to build confidence in their coaching leadership style. Next, leaders need to proactively develop the emotional intelligence, the social intelligence, and the relationship systems intelligence within all employees in the organization. This starts with raising self-awareness and then other awareness of how they impact others. And finally, developing an understanding of the intelligence that already exists within their current relationships with other employees and other teams. There's real rich intelligence in those relationships that we don't tap into. Once employees understand relationship systems intelligence, it is possible to develop a systemic coaching approach across the whole organization that then enables the organization to become a living organism guided by its employees doing the right thing in the moment in line with organization vision, values, and purpose. It just happens. The final stage of this journey is enabling all employees to contribute in their own way to developing a deliberately developmental organization. And this is where everyone is encouraged to challenge themselves on a daily basis for their own benefit of personal development, and more importantly, the organization's benefit in the long term. A key element in successfully developing a coaching culture is how the leadership team or the leader develops a coaching training framework. All human beings have the innate ability to coach themselves and others. But these skills are not actively encouraged in most organizations today. The leader needs to take care in how the training is designed and delivered to ensure that the participants not only learn, but actually practice the skills so that they become embedded in their daily habits. As we're all aware, many training programs have fantastic content, particularly some that's online today. Technology can enable fast-paced learning. However, there is much evidence to suggest that when we learn new skills on training programs, no matter how good the content, we also need to practice those skills for at least 3 weeks on a daily basis for the learning to take hold and be applied naturally in our everyday lives. It takes 3 weeks for the habits to reform. These new habits in the way we coach ourselves and others then take hold in the organization and support others to build their own confidence. Many organizations have talented HR teams that can provide world-class training, but I would always encourage leaders to benchmark their own internal HR solutions with those provided by external providers, and where possible, partner with a professional coaching training company. Even the best training organizations can't mind read what a leader is thinking about. So developing clear objectives for the training is absolutely critical in putting the right training in place. The best way to think about this is in envisioning the outcomes that the leader would want to achieve as a result of effective training in the coaching skills. This might be better 360 feedback on leadership style, or it might be improved performance in net promoter score. Whatever is the outcome that the leadership team is looking for, then the training partner needs to understand that, and then will be better able to design the right solution for the organization. Be warned that any professional training partner worth their salt will test and clarify your understanding of the program goals and will want to see consistency and clarity of thinking around those goals across the whole senior leadership team before they commit any resource to actually designing and delivering the training. Once the training program has been agreed, the senior leadership team really needs to sponsor authentically the training and role model behaviors that they are looking to create within the organization, so that all employees that are embarking on the training can see the importance of what they're participating in and that they need to take it seriously and commit. As with most training programs, it is best to start small with teaching basic coaching skills. These include active and engaged listening skills, enabling others to have the time and space to think before responding to a question, rather than rushing them to come to an answer, moving from being directive in questioning to a position of curiosity, and also being comfortable with silence. Creating space and time to think for themselves before responding in a relationship is also an important skill to develop. These skills are best regained, because we all have them, and practiced through experiential learning supported by some theoretical knowledge. And learning in triads enables the participants to take the part of the coach, the coachee, and an observer to actually look at what's going on in the coaching relationship, to maximize everyone's learning from 3 different perspectives. Above all, the training needs to be fun and leave the participants with actions to practice for the next 3 weeks so they can really embed the learning. Of course, employees will vary in their interest levels following the training, but in my experience, the skills that are regained by employees are as useful in their personal lives as they are in their work lives. For those that are interested to learn more, there is always an opportunity to provide further training with a mix of face-to-face practice and also online learning to support their theoretical knowledge. Finally, most organizations are interested in developing an in-house internal coaching pool. And these individuals tend to be more qualified and experienced in providing the support required in terms of developing coaching skills across the organization to help embed those skills once the external training program has concluded. Training partners will provide more in-depth programs that include diploma qualifications that are approved by the International Coach Federation, and other qualifications to varying levels. So what is it you can do as a leader, as an influencer now to develop a coaching culture within any organization that you serve or are involved with? As with a lot of this content, the journey to forming these new habits that enable you to develop a coaching culture within any organization is a long and challenging adventure. There will be times when you feel you are making breakthroughs, and then the next day you are back to old habits. This is normal for all of us, and it takes time and trust to create the environment that is so important to developing a coaching culture. It starts with us. And then once we start role modeling the right kind of behaviors, we can support others in the organization who want to learn about self-coaching themselves and coaching others in the organization. Over time, every employee can learn how to support each other. And organizational performance improves over time. So I'd like you to now think about the next couple of weeks in your life. Think about where is an organization that you're involved in on its journey in terms of creating a coaching culture. It could be right at the start, it could be the middle, it could be the end. But think about and look for opportunities where you can start to develop a coaching culture. What can you do to role model a coaching leadership style? Decide what support you need in developing a coaching culture within that organization. What one action can you take after this webinar today to develop a coaching culture within the organization that you're involved in? I'd like you to get your pen and papers now, and I'd like you to just take up to 5 minutes just to really think deeply about these questions and think about the organizations that you're involved in. It could be a community organization, it could be a church organization, it could be a sports organization that you're involved in, or indeed the company that you're working in. And just have a think about where you can make a difference in terms of moving that organization along in terms of creating a coaching culture. And all I'd like you to do once you've done that thinking for 5 minutes is write down at least one action. And if you feel that it's something that you would want to share, then please type it into the chat box as well, and all of us can see the kinds of actions that are coming up for you. So I'm just going to give you maybe 3 to 5 minutes to do that before we conclude the presentation and move into Q&A. I'm just going to put my video on hold just for that 3 to 5 minutes. If you're watching this webinar, the recorded one, then please pause now and restart when you've done the exercise. I'll just give you one more minute, and if you've done the action, then maybe type into the chat box any questions that you might have, and we can come to those at the end of the webinar. I'll just give you one more minute. Okay, thanks for doing that, everybody. It's just good to have some time out to think about how you could contribute, even if it's an organisation down the road. We'll now move on to the final stage of the presentation. My dog is barking, which is lovely. So a quick summary of what we have covered in today's webinar. First of all, it's not easy to develop a coaching culture. Role model the coaching leadership style. Make sure you master the discipline of self-leadership and build self-coaching habits. Coach your relationships with others and encourage others to develop their own coaching leadership style. Train your employees so that they feel much more confident in coaching their teams. Provide them with the basic tools of active and engaged listening, the ability to create space for others to think and develop their own ideas, and the confidence to use a coaching leadership style in all of their own relationships. Encourage your employees to contribute to developing a deliberately developmental organization, a DDO. Ask them to take responsibility and ownership of their own development and encourage them to ask for feedback and opportunities to stretch themselves further each day. Over time, try to understand the system your employees are operating within and coach the system. This is all about understanding what the organization really needs right now and enabling your employees to trust their own judgment in what is needed and voice their feelings and opinions to help move the system forward in a natural way. Let it emerge. I would like to share a very quick case study with you to demonstrate how an organization begins its journey in creating a coaching culture. I recently partnered with a law firm who had decided that they wanted to create a coaching culture across the whole organization. This had been driven by a newly appointed CEO who'd come into the organization, and as part of that, they had been coached and experienced the benefits of the coaching to the extent that they really wanted all of the 800 staff in the company to gain the value of being coached as they had. They felt that this was the best way to ensure the success of a major transformation program that was going on in the organization, that was focused on integrating multiple acquisitions that had been made over the years and left to operate on their own. The CEO, importantly, role modeled a coaching leadership style, which wasn't easy in that environment, and gained buy-in from their senior leadership team to decide what outcomes they wanted from a coaching culture and what skills they all needed to be able to deliver it. They decided to partner with the AOEC in London, Academy of Executive Coaching. They are a reputable world-class organization that supports leadership teams in the development of coaching cultures. In partnership, they co-created a training program for the senior leaders to begin with. And the program consisted of a series of half-day coaching skill workshops that focused on the basic skills of coaching. There were short spurts, so they didn't take the whole of the day, and the leaders committed to turn up. Once the leaders had gained this understanding, they had the chance to practice their newly acquired skills in their everyday interactions with their teams. The leaders then attended further half-day workshops to share their learning with each other and begin to practice their coaching skills on each other, building their confidence and learning from each other the different styles that they were taking. Alongside this, the AOEC also provided more in-depth training to 16 designated internal coaches who were to become champions and master practitioners in coaching within the organization, so that they could encourage the coaching culture to emerge from within. Once the senior leaders and internal coaches had formed habits around their coaching leadership style, the coaching culture was able to emerge naturally, and the next stage for the company is to encourage employees to take ownership of their own development by being given the space and challenge to think about how they might make more of a contribution to the organization going forward. Organizations that develop coaching cultures become more agile over time and more able to deal with uncertainty in the long term. To say thank you to all of you for signing up to today's webinar. Indeed, those that are watching this in the recording, I would like to make you all an offer today. This is a really interesting area for organizations. And if you would like to learn more about how to start to develop a coaching culture or continue to develop it within any organization that you might be working within or serving, including some of the techniques that we've talked about today, with my support and challenge, then I'd be very happy to work with you and offer you a complimentary coaching session with me in the coming weeks. I have a limited number of sessions available for this purpose, so if you are interested, then please do contact me after the webinar by email, over the phone, on LinkedIn, and we can discuss next steps. I know a lot of you are interested in further reading after these webinars, so these are the three that I would actually recommend to you. Interestingly, the coaching habit is much more practical. So it's talking about how you can say less, ask more, and change that coaching leadership style. So that's a really pragmatic book. I think it's worth reading. I think the Daniel Coyle book is really interesting because it actually gives you a sense about how groups are formed within organizations and how those cultures develop and how you can change them. And then the book in the middle, the And Everyone Culture, is a bit more detail about how a lot of companies in the US have actually developed this concept of a deliberately developmental organization where individual employees take full responsibility and accountability for stretching themselves and moving on to various projects that really take them out of their comfort zones. And it's a really interesting read, again, from a different perspective. So I think all of these three books, maybe the Coaching Habit first, the Daniel Coyle book, and then the other book after that would be probably the best order to read them in. Thanks for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. We're going to go into Q&A. I know a couple of questions have come in. Thanks for attending. The final webinar of this series focuses on how leaders can sustain self-leadership through self-coaching over time. We'll be bringing all of the subject matter over the last 13 webinars together and in summary. And we're going to have a lot of time for question and answer in that one in terms of that session. That's going to take place on the 28th of October at 11 a.m. I think that's a Wednesday. I'll send an invite out to you nearer the time. But thanks very much for attending today. And I'll just see if any questions have come up. Let's have a look. So we have a comment that's come through. And this is an action that's come through in terms of that individual want to take a coaching culture forward. So this one is going to suggest that we give staff a better opportunity to be heard so that they will be able to take more control over the training they receive rather than simply undertaking the standard training applicable as they're appointed to a new role. I think that's a really important point, giving responsibility and ownership to the individual. Another point here, a couple of people within my team are happy doing their jobs. Can you actually change people's minds about learning and development? Well, it's a really good question. There's one thing being happy doing their jobs, but you get to a certain point where happiness creates comfort levels. And when we're comfortable, we don't necessarily tend to perform at our peak. So there are two perspectives here. There's the employee who's happy, but they may be starting to just tread water a little bit, and therefore you're not getting probably the most that you can from them. And then there's the employer's perspective, where actually to engage that individual even further in terms of the wider organization goals, to challenge them and take them out of their comfort zones normally creates better performance. We think about when we ride a bicycle for the first time. We actually feel very uncomfortable when we're on that bike, and we're still wanting the support with the individual holding onto our seat, and then suddenly we look and it's not there anymore, and we've moved into that uncomfortable space but proven that we can do it. And it's the same thing with providing new challenges to employees. So can you actually change people's mind about learning and development? I think we have a duty as employers to give opportunities to employees to own their own personal development by giving them clear indications about how we want them to contribute to the organization in the wider sense, and hold them to account around that, about owning those plans and really judging them on the basis of the kinds of ways they're going to contribute going forward, because it changes week to week, month to month. So I think as long as you can inspire them around that and give them opportunities to develop the organization, most human beings want to be able to fulfill their potential. And it's just giving them an opportunity to do that. So I'll just see if there are any other questions that are going to come in before we wrap up. One thing I'll say finally before we finish is that this is obviously a very advanced stage in terms of leaders taking a coaching culture approach to their company. And it is important to go through the initial stages that we've talked about. But having said that, there are ways to start small. And one of the best ways is to just enable people to learn about what coaching skills are. It doesn't matter if it's an online webinar or a basic teaching program, which is very, very cheap to put on. But I think getting people to understand that great coaching is not mentoring. It's not about advising people. It's about listening, understanding, and giving people the space to actually think and come up with their own solutions. Because if people come up with their own solutions, they're much more likely to be the right ones, and they're much more likely to be adopted by the employees. So I think with that, I'll leave you. Have a really productive rest of the day. And if you want to get in touch after today, let me know. And I hope to see you again in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks for attending. Bye.